Hi, I'm Bonnie Barker with BonnieBayCrochet.com, and welcome to video number 1 of the Lion Brand Tree of Life Afghan. Okay, if you haven't done so already, the first thing you need to do is print a copy of this pattern. You're going to need a copy. If you work from a computer, I guess that would be fine, but I highly recommend, good old pencil and paper to work from. One thing about this design is that it does have stitch diagrams in them. And one thing that I found really helpful to me, especially with my older eyes, is I like to make a screenshot of these, if you know how to do that with your computer, and put them into another document and enlarge them. If you can't do that, you can always photocopy them at your local store that has photocopy machines and make them larger. It's not a requirement, it's just a suggestion, and also makes it easier for seeing how many stitches are where and for checking the rows off as we go. All right, you're also going to need a size H, which is an 8 or 5.00 millimeter crochet hook, and you're also going to need a J or 10 or 6.00 crochet hook. You're going to need some stitch markers, and if you look at the part of the pattern, it also says you're going to need large eye blunt needles, a set of 6. I'm not exactly sure where we're going with that, but we'll find that out as we go along. Okay, and you also are going to need 15 scans of the Woolies. This is a worsted weight yarn, and the information is in the pattern. Each of these has approximately 197 yards. So if you want to do the math and figure out what you need, go ahead and gather that together. Well, let's go ahead and let's begin. Okay, I want to review a few things. First of all, the skill level listed here is experienced. If you are not, I would say, an intermediate crocheter, you might have some trouble with this. I'm going to try to make it as easy as I can, but just do know that you are getting into a pattern that is experienced. Now, here they have some corrections listed for us. So when we get to these places, we're going to go ahead and notice that there are some corrections, and we will try to refer back to this later. There's another thing I want to say about the gauge. The gauge that they're showing us is 15 stitches and 14 rows equals 4 inches. They didn't specify which hook that is. Okay, let's see. But I'm pretty sure that that would be for the H size hook. But anyway, you do want to be sure to check your gauge. It's not super critical except in the area of needing more yarn. If your stitches tend to be larger than gauges in the pattern, then you're going to need a little more yarn. If they tend to be smaller, then your project is going to be smaller than the size here. Now this is kind of a smaller size throw. It's going to be approximately 44 inches by 56 inches. So if you want something a little bit bigger than that, and if it is significantly bigger, you want to maybe thinking about adding more to your pattern. How you do that is really up to you. I really don't have time in these videos to go into that because we're going to be covering so many different things. There's a lot of information about post stitches. I'm going to just deal with that as we come across it in the pattern. Let's look at the next page. Okay, this is kind of important. Some of the notes. Number 1, front posts are worked on odd number rows, and back posts are worked on even number rows. Okay, so the front side facing will say RS for right side, and then WS for back side, or wrong side. Okay, I'm getting redundant here. Okay, also always skip the next stitch behind a front post and in front of a back post stitch. I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to here, but I'm sure we're going to get into that very soon. And the other thing is number 4, I wanted to point out. For clarity, the right side rows in stitch diagrams are in red. Okay, so whenever you see red on these stitch diagrams, that's with the front side facing. The black is with the back side facing. Okay, and if you are reading the right side rows, okay, so of the red, if you're right-handed, you're going to read these from right to left. And when you're working with the back side, this row is going to be read from left to right. Now if you're left-handed, it's the exact opposite of what I just said. But you could see, I guess, the direction I was pointing. For the right side, it goes this way. For the wrong side facing, it goes this way. And if you're watching the left-hand video, my fingers would have been going the opposite directions of the right-handed. Okay. And let's see, there is a diagram key. So if you've never read these, I would take a few minutes just to study what each of these look like. For example, a chain looks like this. The X's are single crochets. The little skinny T with a little line through it is a double crochet. A grouping of these, it says 6 double crochet worked into 1 single crochet. You can see how that looks, and they're all connected in the same place. Very, very visual. Okay, this is a chain 10, single crochet, chain 10, etc., etc., and we will get to that. And back post and front post double crochets. And you notice that the treble crochets have two little notches in them for front post and back post treble crochets. Okay, I've skipped past the 4 pages of details on how to crochet the trees and everything, and I've come to this point right here, which is actually the beginning of our project. It says Afghan, and this is where we're going to begin. And for the tree panel, with a larger hook, crochet or chain 145 stitches. So let's go ahead and get our larger hook, which is the J hook, and our yarn, and we are really going to begin this time. I'm going to go ahead using my J or larger size hook, make a slip knot just like so, and make sure that you leave a nice tail so that you have no trouble hiding that with your needle at the end of the project. Let's go ahead and chain 145, and the way I like to do this is in groups of 5 because it's easier to count by 5s in case someone talks to me or I lose count. But go ahead and chain 145 chains. Now for row 1, we are going to start in the second chain from hook, and we are going to single crochet in each chain across. I am going to single crochet in the side of the V. Do you see the V of the chain? I like to just work my stitches in the side. If you like to work the back bump, you may be free to do that. This is just the way I've done it for many years, and I just find it easier for me. But it's up to you what you do there. But go ahead and work these single crochets all the way across. That should give you 144 stitches after we finish this row. Okay, after working all those stitches all the way across the row, I wanted to show you something here. This is a little bit curly on my end, but I'm not going to worry about that because that's going to all straighten out as we do the extra rows. Now, if you find that yours is extremely curly and tight after 2 more rows that we work, you may have to go back and rework that foundation chain a little more loosely. And the way I suggest that, this is only if it's too tight and way too curly after 2 more rows. I would suggest bumping up to 1 size larger hook and reworking that chain, and then go back to your regular size hook as you work the single crochets. Okay, but if that's not a problem, which I'm hoping it's not with most of you, let's go on to row number 2. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Now the instructions say to single crochet in the next 48 single crochet, and then you're going to place a stitch marker. We're going to do that 2 times. So let's go ahead and single crochet those 48 stitches. Okay, after crocheting these 48 stitches, I just want to show you just how it's already taken some of that curl out. And when I get to single crochet number 48, I'm going to just mark it with the stitch marker like this. Now you don't have to have the exact kind of stitch markers. You can use anything. Even if you don't have a stitch marker, you can use a contrasting color thread and just pull the thread and just, tie a little bow or something on it. Something that you can take back out easily. Okay, so I marked that stitch number 48, and I'm going to do that again. Crochet 48 more stitches. Okay, I've now crocheted from the last stitch marker, I've crocheted 48 more stitches. I'm going to go ahead and mark this with a stitch marker. Let me say a word about stitch markers too. Make sure that you get the kind that you can take off and on, or put on and take off easily. some of the kind that are designed for knitting only are not designed to be taken off and on like you need for crochet. So just thought I'd throw that in there. Okay, so after we've done that, now we should have 48 stitches left. So now we're going to single crochet in the last 48 stitches. When I get to the end of my row, I should have 144 stitches. This is gonna be the stitch count throughout for this project. Okay, I've just finished that last group of 48 single crochets, and the directions now say to work rows 1 through 55 of trees pattern. And here's the note in the pattern. There should be 144 stitches worked in each row. Each repeat of the trees pattern, or each row that we cover, should be worked over 48 stitches separated by stitch markers, and then we are to move the stitch markers up as work progresses and count your stitches frequently. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dig in. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we are going to visually study each row. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and get a number here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I'm going to write the number 14 down there, because that tells me that there are 14 X's, and this is going to be through all of these, I guess the first 15, 16 rows. And let's just verify. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 X's there, so I'm going to write 12 down there. And then over on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It looked like 14, but I just wanted to verify that. So that just tells me how many of these X's are across. Each of these X's, as you recall, represent a single crochet. And these little things here with the hook, and it has only one little dash on it. So that tells me that that is a front post double crochet. So let's go ahead and get started on this. And again, these are 48 stitches across, and we're going to rework that 3 times as we go across this. So let's go ahead and do that. And the first thing is a chain right here. So we're going to do a chain, 14 single crochets, 4 front post double crochets, 12 single crochets, 4 front post double crochets, and then 14 single crochets. I apologize if you are watching the left-handed version. The numbers are going to be reversed. I'm really sorry because I am giving you a flipped image of this. So I know everything is backwards, but if you can just kind of read that backwards with me, that's really a 14, not a 41. That's a 12, not a 21, etc. Okay? Well, let's go ahead and work the first of the tree pattern row. So we are going to chain 1 and then work 14 single crochets. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now to work this double crochet, I am going to actually connect it in down below, and I'm going to go right below here. Actually, let me do that again so that you can see it. I'll go a little bit slowly. Okay, so let's go ahead, and I'm actually going to put it right. Here's the stitch here. It's going to go right below that. We're going to do this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like that. Okay, these are front post double crochets. Now behind, I'm going to skip 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me do that again so that you can see. I'm going to skip these stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the next stitch here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to single crochet in the next 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and we're going to do 4 more front post double crochets, doing them on the first row. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And behind we're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to single crochet in the next 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So let's take a look at that, what we've just done. Okay, so what we have 14 single crochets, 4 front post doubles. It's kind of hard to see I'll try to get it so you can see that. And then 12 single crochets, and then 4 front post doubles, and then 14 single crochets again. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do this 2 more times all the way across. Okay, I'm going to work the first. I've worked the first one for you. Let me see. I'll go ahead and I'll do a couple more with you. So we're going to start the next section. This is 1, and let's go ahead and be diligent and move the stitch marker up to the next stitch so that we know that this is the beginning of that tree pattern again. Okay. All right, there we go. So that's 1. We're going to do 14 single crochets. After those 14 single crochets, we do 4 front post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, skip 4 stitches. 1. Now these are 4 stitches that you have not worked in yet. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we single crochet in the next 12. And then after those 12 single crochets, we do 4 more front post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And remember, skip 4 unused stitches back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then single crochet in the next 14 stitches. Okay, so far so good. So I've just completed the second group of trees. Okay, or the foundation thereof. All right, so now I'm going to do the last group, and we're just going to repeat that again. I'm going to crochet in that first stitch, which is stitch number 1. Let's go ahead and diligently transfer this stitch marker. Do you see why this is why it's important that the stitch markers are easy to get on and off? Okay, so we do the 14 stitches again, and now we work 4 front post double crochets, working them in that first stitch. And skip 1, 2, 3, 4, and then single crochet in the next 12 stitches. After working those 12 stitches, 4 more front post double crochet. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we skip 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches back here, and then we should have 14 stitches remaining. Let's hope that's the case. Okay, so I made it all the way across, and the numbers did work out. This is really important that this is set up correctly on this first row of working this tree pattern. Okay, so now we're going to work row 2. Okay, let's take a look at row 2. We're going to work from left. We're going to read this from left to right because it's the black ink and not the red. And we're going to have our chain 1, 14 single crochets, 4 back post double crochets, 12 single crochets, 4 back post doubles, and then 14 again. So it's going to be 14, 4, 12, 4, 14. And we're going to work that 3 times. Now, to simplify the videos and the length of them so that they don't end up being, a million hours long, I'm just going to do 1 repeat of this, and then you'll repeat that 2 more times after each stitch marker and move each one as you go. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to call this row 2 of the tree pattern, even though it's actually row 4, but we're going to not confuse this, and we're just going to call this row 2 of the tree pattern. We are going to single crochet in the first 14 stitches. After those 14 stitches, single crochets rather, we're going to do 4 back post double crochets. And for the back post, we are coming in the back door as we come around each of those stitches. Okay, and then after we finish those 4 back post double crochets, we're going to do 12 single crochets. Now before I do that, I want you to be careful. Make sure that you don't put any extra stitches in these post stitches, okay? So make sure that you do count them. So we're going to do 12 here. After those 12 single crochets, and yes, I did count them as I went along, make sure that you have 12. We're going to do 4 back post double crochets. Okay, making the trunks of those trees on the other side there. And then after that, we're going to do or crochet 14 single crochets, and that should take you to the first stitch marker. Okay, the last stitch as you go this direction is going to be the stitch that has the stitch marker. So that's the 14th stitch. I'm going to take that out now, and then I'm going to replace it in the stitch right there. Okay, so that's a little different with the back side facing. With the back side facing, you're actually going to end this section in the stitch with the stitch marker. So let's go ahead and I will do this again for you. Okay, we're going to count 14 single crochets. Okay, so it did come out evenly. I counted 14 single crochets. Now I'm going to do 4 back post double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to do 12 single crochets. After working those 12 single crochets, we do 4 more back post double crochets. And it's easy to see this because my fingers can feel that these post stitches are coming, and it should be more and more intuitive as you go along with each row. And we're really only on the second row, and this is looking like it's not going to be quite as bad as it looks. Okay, now the last section here for this second repeat is to do those 14 single crochets. And just like that first repeat, that 14th stitch is actually going to be the same stitch where the stitch marker is located. And I'm going to go ahead and take that stitch marker out and put it back in that stitch where I just crocheted into it. And then so all I need to do now is 1 more repeat, and I'm going to let you do that one on your own. Be 14 single crochets, then 4 back post doubles, 12 single crochets, 4 back post doubles, and then 14 single crochets. So go ahead and finish that across. Okay, now we're going to take a look at rows 3 and 4, because rows 3, remember, going from right to left, and then row 4 from left to right, and you can see that they're exactly like the 2 rows that we've just worked. They're exactly like rows 1 and 2. So actually the next several rows are going to be the same, but I'm just going to take them in 2 row increments just to try to simplify this. So let's go ahead, and we're going to do row 3 and then row 4, and row 3 is going to be a chain 1, 14 single crochets, 4 front post just where the front post are already established, 4 front post double crochets, I do need to be clear, then 12 single crochets, 4 front post double crochets, and then 14 single crochets. We'll work that all the way across the row. Then with the back side facing, we're going to work a chain 1, and we're going to do 14 single crochets, 4 back post trebles. 4 back post double crochets. I stand corrected. 12 single crochets, and then 4 back post double crochets, and then 14 single crochets. So that would be going from right to left, 14, 4, 12, 4, 14, and then going from left to right with the back side facing, 14, 4, 12, 4, 14 on the stitch count. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start you on the first repeat of row 3. Okay, so we chain 1 and we single crochet in the first 14 stitches, or until we get to the front post doubles, but do make sure that you are counting your single crochet so that you don't add any additional ones in. After those 14 single crochets, we do 4 more front post double. And as you can see, even only on the 3rd row of the tree pattern, that it really is it's not that bad yet. Okay, and then we do 12 single crochets. After those 12 single crochets, 4 more front post double crochets. And also, I should have said this sooner, but you're just working them in the double crochet or the front post, or actually it was a back post double crochet, but of the post stitch from the previous row. You're not going down 2 stitches or anything. You're just working them in the one from the previous row. Okay. Whoops, let's try that one again. And then after you do that, you're going to do 14 single crochets. I just completed those 14 stitches, and just as a gentle reminder, when you're using these stitch markers, that these stitches are going to be the first of the repeats of the graph that we're using, and when we're coming with the back side facing, these are going to be the last stitch that we work of that 48 stitch repeat. Okay, so go ahead and start the repeat again. So this would be stitch 1 of those 14 stitches, and I am going to reposition this stitch. I will do this every single row, and go ahead and do 2 more repeats of the 3rd row of this tree pattern. Yeah, you can see that our trees, our little trunks there, are growing, and you should have 6 of these across your rows. All right, now we're ready to do row number 4. Chain 1 turn. This is with the back side facing, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the 2nd row. We're just going to work 14 single crochets across. After those 14 single crochets, we're going to work 4 back post double crochets. And then we're going to work 12 single crochets. After those 12 single crochets, we do 4 more back post double crochets. And then followed by 14 single crochets. I know this is repetitive, but just to remind you that that 14th single crochet with the back side facing is going to be worked where the stitch marker is. So I'm going to go ahead, remove that, and then I'm going to start this pattern again. So I'll go ahead and do that 2 more times across the row. Okay, let's go ahead and look at where we've been. So we've worked rows 1 through 4. Okay, and so now what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you work from row 5 all the way through row 15, actually through row 16. There's a little bleed over of this stitch here, but that's actually part of row 17. So I'm going to have you do from row 5 through row 16. Okay, so from row 5 to row 16, the last row that you work will be worked with the backside facing, and you're going to work them exactly like I just showed you, with the 14 single crochets for either front post or back post, then 12 single crochets, then 4 either front post or back post, again depending on whether you have the front or the back side facing, and then 14 single crochets for each of those 48 stitch sections. Make sure that you continue to move your stitch markers up, and remember that when you're going across, that the new 48 will begin with a stitch marker with the front side facing, but your 48 stitch count will end, that will be stitch 48, as you're coming this direction. Okay, so go ahead and repeat through row number 16, which is right here, and then I will continue on with you in video number 2. God bless. Bye-bye.